What's going on, guys? David Falla here. Welcome to another tutorial. On today's tutorial, we're gonna go ahead and do a low fade. I want to show you guys how I do a low fade and my approach to it. Keep in mind that low fades tend to be different depending on what the client wants, depending on what the head shape is, and depending on the barber too. Some barbers do very tight low fades. Some barbers like me, we do a little bit more open low fades, right? So it just depends many things. In my opinion, sometimes it just depends on the client's head shape and what's going to look best for that client. Also, what the client wants. Sometimes the client wants like a low fade, but they don't want like a super tight really dark low fade. So just keep that in mind. So the first thing you guys saw was me doing my first guide with a number 1 with the lever closed, and here we're gonna do number 2. I would say like a finger width kind of second guide on top of the number 1, and this is gonna be one number 2 with the lever closed as well. This is the JRL, how you guys can see. So the button in the middle kind of moves the blade up and down, so that will be the lever in this case. So down will be open and close will be up, right? So right here we're gonna go ahead and use an 1.5 guard, and then we're gonna go ahead and start with the lever open, and then we're gonna close it. We're gonna blend that number 2 into a number 1. Reason why I started with a number 1 is because I want to make sure that my fade stays low enough, right? Sometimes when you put that first guide with a 0, sometimes the fade can start going a little bit higher. So for me, I always start my low fade with number 1, and then if I need to go higher, I can always go higher, but at least I know exactly where the dark part of the fade is gonna be. So now we're gonna go ahead and we use a number 1, and we 1.5, and then we open and close, and now we use a number 1. We're gonna go ahead and use a number 1 with the lever down or open, and then we're gonna go ahead and close it little by little. Just when those two are already blended, that's when I actually can go ahead and put that number 0. How I said, like for me, it's just a matter of making sure the fade doesn't go too high. Everybody starts differently, guys. This is just a technique that I've been developing lately, and just always start with a number 1 and use that as my guide, and then go from there, right? I feel like sometimes if we teach that to especially the beginners, right, they're so afraid of where to put that number 0. I think if we start with number 1, it kind of gives them a little bit more room to like move that guide up if it's needed, and like that they can actually, avoid taking the fade too high. So here we're gonna go ahead. After that, we're gonna go ahead and skin the bottom. We are gonna shave the bottom using an electric shaver. You can also use a razor if that's what you prefer, but in my case, I love using electric shavers just because honestly it makes it easier, and I avoid cutting the client and things like that, right? It's just easier in my opinion. So here we're gonna go ahead and use the half. So how I said, the JRL, the blade, they don't open too much. Like the lever doesn't open the blades too much, so you really need the half and the 0 of this machine to kind of create that nice blend. That's my opinion. I mean, I've seen other barbers that they don't really use them. I tried not using them, and I feel like you need them, right? So in my opinion, I think with the JRL, you might take a little bit longer, even though the haircuts come out really nicely. I think with the JRL it take a little bit longer because I feel you need to use other guards. So, well, that's my opinion. So here we're using number half with the lever open, and then we're gonna close it, and then we're gonna go ahead and use the 0. So this actually has a half and a 0, and this has a 0. Wall has a half. This one actually has both. Once we're done fading that 0, then obviously always open and then close the lever. Now we can go ahead and start erasing the last line that we made. Since we already used all those other guards, it makes it a lot easier, obviously, because the shape is already in there to kind of erase the last line. So the same thing, I always start with a lever open regardless of the machine. I always do lever open and then I close it little by little. Use your corners. I think that's one of the main tips that I can give you, is use a lot of your corners. Sometimes I feel like barbers make a lot of mistakes, or because they use the whole blade, and sometimes it's not really required. You cannot be as precise sometimes when you're using the whole blade, but if you just use like 3 or like 4 teeth of the corner, then it makes it a lot easier, kind of like a pen, like a pencil or something, like a brush that you're using to kind of paint, right? So it's really called this. It's a little bit more detailed that way. You might take a tiny bit longer just because, you know, like you're just using a couple of teeth, but you will definitely create a better result. So that's the way I like to do it. So I try to use a lot of corners and not use the full blade, just the way I do it. The fade is done. Usually what I like to do, I like to cut the top. And actually, I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I have no idea why I started this haircut this way. I usually just cut the top first and then I do the fade. I think it just makes it a lot easier. In this case, I have no idea why I started the fade first and then cut the top after. So here I'm going to show you basic technique of how we cut the top. Just make sure that we are careful with the cowlick on the back and make sure to get that out of the way. Then what we're going to do, we're going to take horizontal sections 90 degrees off the ground, off the floor, 90 degrees, and then all we're going to do is that we're going to take sections about, I would say, like an inch, and then we're gonna grab that section, pull it back to the previous one, and then we're gonna look for a guide, and then we're gonna cut. Just very basic ways to cut this haircut. Sometimes you don't really need to do anything fancy or do any parts or any sections, nothing like that. Sometimes it's just as long as you are able to maintain the square shape, that's really all you need. Sometimes some hairs are harder than others, depends on the length as well, obviously, but like this is just a very basic way to do it. So we're matching the other side, and obviously keep in mind the most important thing is your guide. You do not want to lose your guide. That's all that matters. Here we're using diagonal back sections to connect the top with the sides. Just make sure that you can see your guide, meaning that you can see the bottom. Remember that number 2 we use, and then we can use you can see the top, which it was what we cut with scissors. So make sure you can see those two and you are connecting them. The same thing with the back, and you can see like I'm creating a 90 degrees kind of like from the head. So make sure that it kind of rounds a little bit and it kind of hugs the head a little bit, but make sure that that corner I don't remove it fully, right? So here I'm cross-checking, making sure that now everything is even, taking vertical section. That's how you cross-check. So if you cut horizontal, you definitely want to use vertical sections to just cross-check, make sure everything is even. It takes not even a minute more to cross-check, but it could make a huge difference on your haircuts. I know a lot of barbers, you cut it one way, and you can see because they over direct the hair so much in certain parts that you create a lot of little peaks and leave them there. So sometimes the haircut just doesn't grow the right way, or the client cannot style it the right way. So just keep that in mind. Cross-check your haircuts. Make sure you take that extra step, because believe it, like clients will appreciate that because they will notice. So here we're gonna go ahead and dry the hair. Medium heat. I don't really try to go too hot depending on the texture of the hair, but here you don't need it. So this is something I wanted to show you guys, and this is what I do in every single haircut. Once I'm done with what it looks like is the whole package, then I go ahead on my detailing, right? Then I start detailing whatever I need to detail. So in this case, I needed to blend the sides into the top a little bit better, and then I needed to work a little bit on the fade. So this is when I'll go ahead and do that. Some barbers detail right away, that's fine. For me, once I have the whole haircut kind of done and I can see the full picture of it, then it makes it easier for me to see what needs to be fixed and what I don't really need to do, you know what I mean? I think sometimes, like, if you start detailing while you're doing the haircut, you might take too long just on detailing work, and then once the haircut is done, you might gotta go back and detail again, right? So for me, it's just it's easier just to do the haircut quick, cut the top, cut the sides, and then I can detail whatever I feel like needs to be retouched, right? So here I'm using a hot towel. I always use a hot towel, guys. It's a service that I offer at the FitBarber Studio. If you guys want to up your prices a little bit, remember to always offer something else. Don't up your prices just because you feel like it. There has to be something that you guys are offering the clients for you to just be able to charge more. So if you're really booked, you're offering with a new service or new price, you're offering like more availability in your schedule, right? So things like that, always keep that in mind. So for me, I always use a hot towel because it just feels good. It helps me with the shave, and the clients appreciate it. So here we put a little product, and that's it, guys. That's the hairstyle. That's how I do a low fade that I feel like he complements his head shape really well, and it just looks very nice. And that was the video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe, like it, and don't forget to share with somebody else. I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.